Hey everyone, welcome to Can't Afford to Record, the YouTube channel where we figure out the art of audio production together. Today on the podcast we have Mr. Joey Bradford from The Used. Joey is not only the guitarist of a band that honestly helped carve my teenage years, but is also an extremely talented producer and has his own recording studio called the Vibeatorium. We get into talking about the latest and greatest guitar software and just how a bad mix and a good mix is so subjective and much more. I'm not going to give out any more spoilers, but ultimately Joey's just a really cool guy to talk music with. Now don't forget, if the Zoom cool quality is not your thing, no problem at all. You can go and listen to the more luscious audio over at Spotify or wherever else you get your podcasts. So with all of that out of the way, here's the episode. Enjoy. Well, we are here with Mr. Joey Bradford. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate getting to hang out today again. Day two.
Yeah, we do this on a daily basis right now. For anyone, but that's an inside joke. Can you tell us a little bit about where you are, Joey, in the world, and tell us about your beautiful studio you've built?
Yeah, I'm in Vista, California. I'm in North San Diego, basically. And we have version 2.0 of my studio here on my property, and we're stoked. It's called the Vibeatorium. I finished building it just before August, and I haven't had a day off since. So it's going great and pumping out some really cool, creative, interesting music that'll be out next year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get into all of that, but I do start each interview exactly the same. And the first question for you is, do you remember a time when you couldn't afford to record?
Absolutely. Let's see, I guess it was when I picked up a guitar. I was kind of in early middle school is when I started getting into guitar, and started with an acoustic. And then I had like a Guitar Center special, a crate amp, and I think it was a De Armand guitar is what it was. It was a Les Paul Cut, this like cream yellow that I immediately put sticker packs all over.
Of course.
But yeah, I started writing songs with my buds in 8th grade, and we had a class at our middle school it was called recording is what was like the name of the class, but it was just, the people that played guitar, and we would go to the cool teacher's room and just kind of jam guitar for that whole period. But yeah, we wanted to record, and my older brother's band was getting ready to do an overnight, like 24-hour session at a studio down the street, and that still costs like $3,000 to do a lockout overnight kind of thing. And but that next step after, really wanting to get into being able to record the songs we were writing, we ended up getting a BR8 that we were recording to zip discs. It was an 8-track, but it was a digital 64-track. I remember that was a big deal. But yeah, we would record straight onto the BR8, and I think we split that between at least 2 bands chipped in to buy it. There was 2 or 3 bands that would kind of practice in my garage, and I think we all chipped in our lunch money or something.
You had a timeshare.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it was my responsibility to have to press all the buttons and figure it out after the fact in Cakewalk. I remember uploading it into Cakewalk on my PC.
Nice.
Okay,
so
glamorous times.
You were messing around. This is like one of your sort of first bands, jamming with friends, recording this way. Was it more of a, we have to get something recorded for the band, or did you specifically have an interest in recording and being a recording artist? Like, was it something you felt you guys needed to do, or was it like, I want to be doing this? And do you think that was a seed that got planted for where you are now?
I think I was always, let's record the song that we wrote, and almost to a fault in the beginning. The recording was kind of like an afterthought. It was like, yeah, we have these songs that we wrote. Let's go record. I'll just buy this thing. I don't need to research or learn or go to school or anything. We'll just start pressing buttons till our song's done. And I still have some of those really early zip disc recordings that we did, and they're so bad. It's so horrendously bad, like unlistenable. But in 8th and 9th grade, getting to hear back what we were jamming was so cool. And I think that ultimately shaped me from a songwriting perspective, I really valued getting to hear back what I was thinking in my head or playing through one time. So that was when I kind of got the bug to do the recording, aside from kind of like being the only guy that didn't say no to doing it, but yeah, I think like that snowballed quickly too, once I got my first little rig, and then as I joined different bands through the years, I kind of just, I've been doing it longer, and now it's up to me to figure out how to record this stuff. And then my buddy Cove, who was in my band in high school, he ended up joining Seosin right out of high school. And when he did join that band, he ended up getting a whole studio rig. He like basically bought Bo's old rig, his guitar player's rig. So we were introduced to Pro Tools real quick. Again, having no one to show us what to do, but just like, okay, we can figure this out. And he had this cool digital desk and wasn't willing to learn anything. So again, it was kind of up to me to figure out what to do with all his fun toys. And here we are 15 years later.
Wow. So are you still a Pro Tools user?
I am. Yeah. It's just what I've used forever. I also use Logic from time to time. I'll get in there if I'm doing something with digital instruments, and yeah, it just kind of depends on the application, but I've always been Pro Tools first.
Okay. And you sort of, you're mentioning that you are self-taught. Did you get any more, and I want to use this term loosely, education? Did you ever go to school to do any of that practical stuff?
I wish that I would have so bad. Every time, like I said, 15 years in, even when I'm doing sessions now, I'll learn some new shortcut or learn some function that I've been doing the long way forever, But again, I've been fortunate to work with a lot of really good producers and insane engineers, and I've always kind of had the home base studio where I have different people working in here. So I've always been the guy over the shoulder of whoever's working, like, hey, what was that you did? What was that?
Right.
And
yeah,
most of the time, because I'm in the band recording, they don't get annoyed with me, but sometimes they do.
Right. I was just about to ask you that as well, because I've been fortunate enough to record in some nice studios and to have those opportunities, but it's only until recently, and I'm sort of thinking like in the past 4 years, I've really been like, no, I need to do more. I want to get more into audio production, and I wish at the time I had spent more time in the control room and asking these questions and watching how people mic stuff up. So can you think about any sort of times where you took advantage of those moments in different album experiences, and maybe who gave you some time and said, well, actually, this is how you do this? Can you think of any stories like that?
Man, all the Hell or High Water records that we made, we did 3 of those, and we did all of them with Fred Archbold, and he's like one of my favorite humans on planet Earth, and he's always kind of been my first quick call when I'm doing anything. And that started from us working in his garage on our record, man, how 8 years ago, something like that maybe, is when we started our relationship. But he instantly became one of the guys, when our band was in the studio, he became like part of the band really quick. And, I didn't feel intimidated like I had in my younger years doing some other records. It was just like, oh, we're working with Fred, like the homie. So right. I think that was when I felt comfortable enough to start asking him questions and him giving me little pointers on things. And then, that's never stopped. I mean, this last record that I did with The Used, we did with John Feldman and his talented engineers as well. And I was annoying the heck out of all those guys. Every little move that they were doing, I was like, wait a minute, what's that? What is this plugin I haven't heard of? What is this? Just different techniques. And they were so cool about it. Like they were kind of excited to help me out with certain things. And I mean, I don't think I've ever done a record where I haven't been that guy. What are you doing? What is that? And then I'll try to run home and figure out how to apply the little things I learned, and then hopefully retain it. And
yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Fred, we had Fred as a podcast guest as well a few weeks ago. So if you're
Oh,
listening to this interview right now, you can go and check out the Fred Archambault one as well. And
anything Fred says is king.
yeah,
Fred's the man. I love Fred.
I learned so
Love you,
much from
Fred.
him. um, so you've come up through the ranks and the years of being in different studios and getting all these different experiences, and you've probably seen how the home recording, the basement recording has also progressed and gotten
Yeah,
better.
drastically.
Why do you have a commercial space now as opposed to a home recording studio?
My situation is unique
Okay,
because this is on my property still.
right.
So it's, it's a detached building, it's its own
Hmm.
thing, and it's, other people can rent it out, and it's open ish to anyone who wants to come. But um yeah, I mean, I didn't think that this was going to be a thing. To
Right,
really answer your question,
right.
I did have a bedroom studio for a lot of time, and
Hmm.
I've had various mobile rigs on tours. I've built a million different old cases. I've repurposed them into my mobile studio, and kind of worked wherever I had to. Um, but my space here, I kind of outgrew it, and it was like quite literally falling apart. And we were getting more work, and I was, doing more songwriting and more back end production and things that were, I guess I didn't really anticipate growing into my older years and continuing to do music and supporting my family doing that. So once this kind of opportunity presented itself and was like, this is what I'm going to do, we took the plunge and built a bigger space. And honestly, to my surprise, I mean, we've been booked up every single day since I opened the door, doing really cool and creative projects. So I'm glad we did it. I don't know that it's always the best decision, but we were also able to invest the money in our property that we're going to own. So,
Right.
rather than going out and getting a commercial space and doing a massive build and then maybe not having to be there eventually.
Yeah, you got to pay rent
So
on two places. So
yeah. So I have a unique situation. We're super stoked here, and it's like a little commune here. There's 3 families on our property,
oh,
and
that's awesome.
studio and a wood shop, all this stuff. But yeah, man, it's kind of, this is ground zero for a ton of my friends' bands, and people are popping down here from LA now to kind of get away. We're in the middle of nowhere. It's good vibes.
So I guess then you have been the bedroom producer. That's
Absolutely.
worked your way up. What would you say is now different from where you are now? And I'm sure there's a lot, but what is different about your productions and what you can achieve now in a dedicated environment to where you were perhaps 5, 6 years ago?
Right. I think honestly, it was, I've kind of always just been a product of my environment in the sense of, um, or ignorant, really. I think the things that I was producing in a non-treated room and not understanding, how my monitors worked and how to use the tools that I had and whatever, I was still turning in projects that came out and like still turning in things that were getting approved, but as my gear improved and, I learned how to dial in a room, and then we built the new space, and then, different reference monitors, and really learning the gear. That's kind of when I learned like, oh, this is, having really, really nice preamps and a really good mic and good cabling and all these things do sound better. Yeah, I just didn't know any better because I didn't have the option. So,
Exactly.
and also I think that the technology just in the last, 5 years alone is insane with plugins and what you can do on a laptop. And,
Hmm.
I use the Apollo interfaces, and I use the, their Unison plugins and their console software and things that I never had access to until recently. And just as a byproduct, everything is sounding a lot better.
Right, right, right. As a producer, do you go by the traditional sense of that word, or when we're talking about Joey Bradford producing, are we also talking about your editing, your mixing, you're doing the whole 9 yards as well, or do you do a bit of both?
It's a bit of both. I mean, I think, about 99% of the time when I'm working with an artist on a project, I'm also, involved in the writing of the song, and maybe even recording what's, some of the music and things like that. But it's kind of, what happens in the room, and we just fly. Like that's my favorite version of being a producer is, an artist comes to me with an idea, and we take it and either within the computer with an acoustic guitar or whatever it is, get the song fleshed out and then start recording it, with as if we're making the finished track. Like we don't need to waste anything. I love getting a song recorded and written in one day and going to mix, But yeah, I mean, a lot of times I'm mixing the projects we're recording. A lot of times I'm, all the time I'm editing the projects I'm recording. And yeah, so it's everything now, right? If you can record and edit, and you can write, and you can produce, or whatever all these words are, if you can get 100% of a song done on your own that sounds great, that's a good place to be. So
absolutely. What would you say is a common trait of someone that's coming up, mixing at home on their laptop, to something that's coming out of, and I'll again use it loosely, but a commercial based studio somewhere that's, dedicated for that environment? What would you say something now that you hear that you I'm sure you have a lot of wisdom on yourself coming from sort of both ends of the spectrum now?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a mixing perspective, and is my mix there, is it good enough yet? I think it's such an interesting conversation in the sense that, it really is objective, right? Like at the end of the day, it's how do you like to hear those frequencies popping out, and what do you want to hear out of the kick and the bass and whatever, at the end of the day, is the song good is most important, and does the mix take away from the song, or does it feel good? Obviously that's an easy thing to say, and we're talking about like really dialing in a mix, and for sonic wizard lords that are out there waiting for that perfect mix. But I think it's getting comfortable with your environment, whether that's this, you're using the same headphones you always mix on with your laptop, and checking it in the car, the same car that you listen to everything on, and all those. It's like a putter. Like you don't need to go buy a new putter every year. It's not going to help you be a better putter. You just get used to the one you have. But yeah, I mean, a commercial space is only as good as the person using the space, right? Like if you learn the room and you're in there enough, and you know what to look for to make it sound right in your car and on the AirPods and all that crap, then you're good. I don't think there's like a ton of weight to, my $10,000 monitors make me a better mixer. Like I don't have $10,000 monitors, mind you, but that concept,
Yes.
I think you can achieve an incredible mix on anything as long as it is consistent and you're able to tell what you're doing.
Do you think that would have been the case 10 years ago?
No, I don't think so, because, well, I don't think you could do, well, maybe you could 10 years ago. I don't think you could do what you could do with a laptop 10 years ago. And I do remember, bands having laptops out and recording rigs, but it was always accompanied with a giant rack of outboard gear. Right. But no, I mean, now it's insane what you can do. You can like Bluetooth record from an X32 and stuff like that. That's crazy.
It really is. Yeah. It's, what a time to record music and to,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I'm just on a little MacBook Air, and I don't know how it still lasts, but it does. And, every time Logic opens and runs smoothly, I'm very, very happy.
That works.
What would you say is, and I think this is sort of going back to how you started that answer of, and what everyone is saying to that question, by the way, of, is the song good? Because if the song's good, it really does trump everything else.
Yeah, it's prerequisite.
Can you think of any amazing songs that actually might not be mixed or recorded that well, that are like you always still go to and that you love because of it?
Oh man, that's an interesting question. I don't know why, and this isn't even really an answer to your question, but what my brain is saying is, I heard this song a few weeks ago from this dude Ghostmane. You know this guy Ghostmane?
I don't think I do, but I do
You'll
now.
have to, it's like one of the more interesting things I've seen in a long time. He has this song that is the most interesting mix. It's not a bad mix. It's just the weirdest mixed produced song that I've heard in a really long time. And for some reason, I keep going back to it and listening to it, and it does something for me. It's like the weirdest example. I don't know why I went to that, but when you hear the song, you're going to be like, this guy's an idiot. Like, this is so weird.
So is it the mix that brings you back to it because you're not sure of it,
The
or is it the
mix
song?
the mix is what keeps bringing me back to it, because it's like, it's almost as if they made like the obvious opposite choice that they should have, which with each step of mixing this song, I don't know, it's really weird. You'll have to, here, let me see if I can find what it's called. The song's called Lazaretto.
Do you think that was intentional? Do you think there's any part of you that's like he mixed it like that, or whoever was working on it did it like that?
Oh, 100%.
Right.
100%. It's like, I don't know, it's really weird. But I love, to answer your question, I mean, I can't think of one, because I think all the recordings from, like, not all, but a lot of the recordings from the late 90s and the early 2000s of like kind of the underground bands that we were listening to, like, they didn't sound that rad, but we didn't know any better. And the songs were fast, and, the drums were cool, and you could pit to it, and it was, But I do remember records back then that sounded really good, and being like, holy crap, you can make something sound good. We're blowing it.
Right. I think it's a little bit like magic. Once you know how it's done, the trick doesn't seem that good anymore. And I think that's kind of a, obviously we're going to get into guitars as well, but guitarist to guitarist, I think we can both get on the same page of that as, that one magical thing about that first E power chord when you first learn it. It's still magical, but, we're so used to it now. And little things like that have been pointed out to me. I think the first time we all realized that the vocals in Wonderwall are too loud, and then you cannot unhear the vocals are too loud. But I was sort of thinking about the other day how, I mean, one of my favorite bands in the entire world are a band called Fountains of Wayne. And,
of course.
Those early 90s albums, same with Ben Folds 5, it does sound like they just threw those mics up and they just got it. It's almost like it wasn't overthought.
There's two stereo room mics in a room with everyone killing their instruments.
Yes. Yeah. And that is what, you can have all the plugins in the world, can't you? You can have the EQs, you can have the sexy 1176, but it has to come from the source. It has to come from the very, very beginning. And that's the vibe. Absolutely.
And that, that was a big reason why, I felt it was important to build a big live room and to have a big, cool sounding drum room, is because those old records are so inspiring. And those are the types of, artists that I love to work with. People that can get in the room and slay together, looking at each other and sound rad during one take,
Yeah. Yep. And be willing to sort of leave some of the gnarly stuff in there, because, I was thinking, I'm sure I won't be able to remember it right now, but I heard a song the other day and I was like, man, I know that that's a mistake on the guitar there, but I would hate it if it wasn't there now. I would hate if they sort of remastered it or remixed it and they took it out. That'd suck. So
for sure. And it's so funny because it's a fine line with modern recording and the modern ear will say, people, it's like almost get taken out of a song, I guess, depending on genre and what you're going for. But it's like there's a lot of perfection in music, and it's really interesting when you hear a band that is really genuinely talented and you can hear the mistakes. It's almost more exciting to listen to, I feel like.
Definitely.
Because, they're that good. They were that close to making it perfect,
Yes, absolutely. I don't expect you to give away too many secrets, and we can definitely step around this question if you like. But are there any things that you do that are go-to things for you when you mix now, regardless maybe of the project? Is there anything which you have a signature move that you do for a mix?
I guess a signature move. You know what I do consistently, pretty much across the board when I'm finalizing a mix is I'll run it through some sort of tape emulation. I have a few differents that I love, and once I get a mix really exciting and it's right there and there's nothing on it and I just want to hear a little bit of warmth, and which is almost everything I work on, be it a rock song or a metal song or an alternative song, whatever. I think I like to mix really bright, and I think that's kind of something, I guess that would be a move, because I kind of mix knowing that I'm going to end up printing that emulation on it. So once I get to that step, it kind of just sands the edge off a little bit and kind of always gets me where I want for step one. Tape emulation, everyone.
There you go.
Know it well.
You got it here first. Okay, I really want to move into guitars. I'm a guitarist, you're a guitarist.
Let's go.
And I know you have an STL ToneHub pack.
I do. Love them.
Yeah, so can you tell me a little bit about this? And I would love to know your opinion and your experience with amp emulation.
Sure.
And I think it's so inspiring that you've got these sounds and you're getting them by plugging them DI into
crazy.
Your interface. I mean,
it's crazy. I've used quite a bit of different emulators. Before STL, most recently, I was using the Positive Grid bias effects stuff, which was really crazy too. A million different amp options that they've built in a computer. They had some amp emulating software as well, where you could kind of capture your own amps, and it was really fun and really convenient. But I still think at that point, when I would mic up a cab and plug in my Orange Rocker Verb or a Bad Cat Lynx or one of these insane amps, it was like kind of night and day, to be completely honest.
Yes.
Where it was like, all right, we're demoing, we're trying to get something real quick. This is great. We got the DI of the guitar, really convenient, super cool. But I'm probably going to end up reamping it after the fact anyway. The STL tones kind of trip me out because, it feels a lot like plugging in the amp, and that's basically what we did to make my pack. I got to try out some of these other producer packs, and I was tripping. They have a Tweed pack, all these old Fender amps that were crazy. And again, I'm just plugging DI into my Apollo. There's no preamp or anything running on my end, just going straight in, and it's like, it doesn't feel like there's so much crazy dynamic with a digital signal. It is really warm. So when we built my pack, I have this rack of amps here, and we captured everything I have in 10 different ways with 4 different mics and different preamps and different cabs, and then squash it all down into, I think we ended up with, there's like 44 presets or something like that.
Wow.
But it was super fun because I've never been like, I do this genre and that's my thing. I've always been across the board. I spent almost a year of my life writing pop country songs in between, touring with a metal band and writing with an emo band now, which is insane, So with the guitar pack, I really wanted to have something that I could do any of those genres with, right? I pull into someone's studio in Nashville, I can download ToneHub real quick and open my pack and ready to go. And I know which amps I'm going to use. And I don't have to fly my giant rack of heads anywhere, which is a pain. But yeah, it's super convenient. It sounds real. And the back end, that you can mess with, all of the settings that you can mess with, the cabs and moving the microphones and stuff is really cool. We dorked out hard and kind of A/B'd the real stuff, the real version of putting a 57 on a cab at a 45 and then doing it in there. And yeah, it's a real fun toy to play with, and it sounds real, and you can print that stuff and use it in mixes. In fact, I just produced a record that we can't announce yet, but I just produced a record and all of the guitars are printed from STL tones, which is,
that's
really cool.
Amazing, man.
Isn't that nuts? It's awesome.
Yeah. But I mean, like, anything to keep the vibe going, anything to keep the energy and
just go.
because there's times when, you know, like I'll wake up in the morning and I'm sure you've been in the same place. You got a riff, or you got, okay, I need to just capture this song. By the time and you want to do a good job of it, but by the time you've mic'd up your cab, or you know, you're trying to do it properly,
it's gone.
The vibe's gone, and it's not as cool as it was.
Yeah, it's I mean, and that's how I got into it, and now I dork out over all these, you know, the digital guitar things, you know, but it started because I wanted to quickly get my song down, and I could open the session, get a click going, open a new track, plug straight into the interface, open a plugin, and especially with STL, even their kind of their default core pack is what they call it. You know, the default amp that opens up when you open the plugin is like so good. It sounds incredible. You're like, yes, this is what I wanted to start with. I think it's a Soldano. It's like a medium gain Soldano. You plug anything in and you're like, yep, we're writing a song with distortion. Let's go.
Man, there was a time when I think Amp Sims, or we won't necessarily name the companies, but you know, when these small digital emulators were coming out,
bean shaped red. We want
shaped, yeah. Or maybe you were like me and got we'll name this one the Digitech RP50 one time for Christmas.
Yeah.
In my very early teens
too. I love it.
But there was, you know, I think it's a similar thing there. Like, we didn't know any better, but now it's like better. There were times when I know I would put like touch my pick against the string and no sound would come out. Like it wasn't enough signal. You know, a buddy of mine who is like a master guitar builder now, builds the most insane guitars ever. I remember he recorded an album with my older brother, and it was a Line 6 Spider that they recorded like on tape too. It was just like the greatest concept. I love it. You can hear this like digital noise when he's changing channels on the amp, like on the record. And now he builds the craziest guitars of all time. He's like an audio lord. It's great. Yeah. Man, that is amazing. Do you think though there is, you know, do you feel like there's still a vibe, obviously, with, you know, with your original amps there, and there will be projects where you're just like, this needs a real hum amp, you know, buzzy amp in it? Is there times where you feel like you still want to do that?
I mean, from time to time, you know, I ended up having to set up, you know, all of my cabs are in various like ISO boxes in the studio, and all the heads are run to different places, and we keep everything pretty isolated. But I ended up setting up my Mesa Lone Star 212 in here, and just really to get feedback and to get that aggressive, nasty sound in the room. So sometimes we'll crank it up to 11 in the control room, and it's just like, all right, let's do this thing. Yeah. But not that it's like an old bad sounding amp. It's an incredible sounding amp, but you know, you can turn that sucker up and it's just going to yell at you, and that's the vibe. You know, I think all of my amps, I'm a big, you know, I'm big on high gain. I like a versatile amp though, you know, that can give me that super low vintage breakup, but also go and sound like a metal chuggy thing.
Yes.
So I think I've always leaned towards the aggression of a guitar and being able to feel it for sure with all of my amps, my old ones, my new ones, everything.
Nice, man. Nice. What guitars are you playing these days? Is it Ernie Ball, or you've got a couple of Ernie Balls?
I'm playing I got a load of Ernie Ball Stingrays. They're awesome. They built me we play a whole bunch of different tunings live, like 6. So they spec'd out every guitar I needed and set me up real nice. And I'm loving those guitars. They're incredible. I've also played Fender forever. I've played Jazz Masters for most of my career. Love the American Pro Jazz Masters. Are some of my favorites ever with the P90s.
Yeah.
That's the current guitar arsenal is like 1 million Fenders and 1 million Stingrays.
Nice.
I'm like that. I like consistency.
Yeah.
Consistency. Yeah.
So what keeps you from, you know, what keeps you inspired, Joey, getting up in the morning and, you know, ready to take on, you know, audio and different kinds of production and mixing gigs? Like what keeps you going?
I'm still like so excited to do this stuff every day, you know, super stoked to be in a band, super stoked to get to write songs.
Hmm.
You know, the audio side has definitely snowballed in the last 7 or 8 years. I'm just, because I didn't go to school and because I kind of always, I almost feel like I have a little chip on my shoulder where it's like, all right, I can figure this out. Like
Right.
I didn't have this. I learned from who you learned, but I'm going to ask you the questions and you're going to teach me anyway, you know? So, um, but I love this stuff, man. I'm insanely blessed to have, you know, to be in a situation where I can have this studio and have this space for people to come record. And, I'm honored to be a part of anyone's recording and writing process. So I think it's an obsession. You know, my wife would agree.
Yes.
You know, I love doing this stuff. So, you know, especially since touring is pushed back for who knows how long. I kind of dove deep in this year and we've been working nonstop and I can't stop. Once, you know, if I hit a wall here soon, maybe I'll take a break, but yeah, we're booked up through the end of March right now and just
Man,
making records.
that's awesome. That's
Super
so
fun.
awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Well, listen, Joey, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. It's great just to hear your, you know, your experiences and your stories, and it's so inspiring knowing that you know you've come from, you know, again, I keep saying use the word loosely, but the bedroom producer, the bedroom mixer,
Absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
home studio. Now you know you got a great space and a live room, and
Look at all those books, guys. Could be your books. Come on.
look, that's it, leather bound.
I let
You know,
leather bound
but how
books.
do they smell? That's really what I want to know. You
They
know.
smell delightful. This room stays pretty good. Oh, you get stinky guys in here every once in a while. Air it out for a minute. We're good to go.
I love it. I love it. Well, dude, thank you so much. Best of luck with everything as well.
Appreciate you,
we're
man.
gonna be following you and seeing what you're doing, and let's catch up again really soon.
Love it, dude.
All right, speak to you soon, Joey.
Later, bud.